How many 4-letter words can I use on that?
Don't get taken down. Figure it out. Like, find a way to not get taken down, even if there's a minute left.
Oh, Nick, I'm a top guy, so I love top wrestling.
We have an amazing culture within our program, and we build it. We don't buy it. We build it.
So I think that wrestling is the greatest sport on earth.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into On3 Wrestling. I'm your host, Nick Kosko, and with me today is RAF co-founder and CEO Chad Bronstein. Chad, good to talk to you. I know there's a lot going on with RAF after a very successful first card in August. Next one is coming up in October. Really looking forward to that one as well. Just, pro wrestling, getting out there, just more opportunities for these guys post-collegiately. So I'll start out with this, just a quick recap of RAF 1. Great card, a lot of championship belts were on the line, but overall a very successful event. What really stood out to you guys and the entire RAF crew?
I think that, for us, like, it actually being there, we started like 6 months ago, really we were going at it for about 9 months, but launching it from start to finish and seeing it at that, from not just the day of the venue, but also like working with the athletes, putting a very organized structure, making a lot of these wrestlers feel like the stars they are. And so there were a couple of moments throughout the week that we were with them, just like feeling good about what we've accomplished. And then obviously when we got into the event, I think everyone saw, but the production quality was incredible. And the matches were great, right? There was a lot of really great matches. So I felt very proud, is the word to describe, that we were able to accomplish this. And it's not about money. It's not about any of that. Like when we started this, I'm in a wrestling room constantly with my son. I wrestled. I wasn't as good as you, Nick, but I wrestled for a long time. And, I just got reinvigorated with the sport. And I was in Tampa, Florida at my, I got Jerry Briscoe told me to go to this guy, Coach Joyce. And I went and took my son there. And I went back to the restroom every day. And I felt my love for it. And then I was moving to Chicago for the summer. And he said, hey, go meet Izzy Martisha. Go call up Izzy and go to his club. So I took my son to Izzy's club. And I was like, and I just loved the way Izzy coached. And I was telling him about some stuff I wanted to do. And that's how we got her. But it's mostly just the proudness of what we accomplished. I think a lot of people were doubters that we were going to actually be able to get anything off the ground.
Right, because there are multiple pro leagues out there, and I was recently involved with CWA as well. They're trying the team approach, like the old school like dual meet team approach, folk style. You guys went the freestyle route to try to go, okay, these are the guys that are on the Olympic level. Maybe they're not on the Olympic team or the world team level. So we want to try something different where it's individual based, and you guys went with that UFC type model. So it's interesting you mentioned the 6 month time periods. I believe you guys announced this was going to become a thing. Back in February? So when you look at the whole process of planning this out, building this thing, was it really from February to August you made this happen, or was it like maybe a year or two before that too?
It wasn't a year or two, about 9 months. Like what Izzy and I, obviously Hulk and Eric were partners, but when Izzy would come into the same office in Tampa, we would just brainstorm. Obviously he had a lot of the relationships with the wrestling community, and we had before we wanted to do anything, we had to make sure the wrestlers believed. One of my first calls was with Ben Askren, with Izzy, to get Ben involved. And Ben's like, I've heard a million pitches to me and Izzy, but then we told him what we were going to do. And he's like, I like this, right? And so when you saw our first Instagram video prior to all that happened with Ben, he was going to wrestle, right? So we felt we had a good vision, but before we launched this, Nick, we spent the time educating the community about what we're doing. Like Sean Bourmet, coach University of Michigan, listened to our ideas with Izzy because they're, have a friendship, and gave us a lot of good advice. And so we spent the time, to your question, educating the community. And then when we knew we were ready to go, we then launched it. So I'd say about 9 to 10 months, and then about 4 to 5 of getting the event up and running.
Mm-hmm. So with all that in mind, I am curious about the decision. Now, I'm not saying it was the right or wrong decision. I liked it because everyone loves championship belts, but there were some initial questions about why the championship belts right off the bat, first event, and all of a sudden you're crowning, whatever it was, 9 or 10 champs. I think he had one non-championship bout for RAF 1, and now it seems like, okay, the champs have their belts. The cards now are going to have maybe less championship bouts per card. How come you guys went with the championships right off the bat rather than try to build something up like that?
Because I think, we brought some great wrestlers that, have been champions in their career. Right. So I feel like it also, I can argue what you just said and say, well, you got Kyle Dake as a champ, right? Could Kyle could defend his belt, or could we also put some matches in between Kyle that will lead up to the same storyline you just mentioned, where we're trying to get to Kyle Dake to become the champion? I think that it's going to evolve. Like we chose that route. Some people may not like it, but we chose the route, and I think you're going to see, it was our first event, so I would say there's going to be a huge evolution as we keep going. But I like on this next card and stuff we're doing, I like our chances with our storylines. And to your point, there's not going to be 8 championship every card, but for the first event, we wanted to make it special. I think that also is back to the experience of the athletes, and what we're creating is that kind of put it to become a reality that they're competing not just for money, but also to be RAF champ. And when they have that belt and they're walking around, I think it just created that excitement and that special feeling.
Yeah, definitely a fair response. I like it, and especially from your point of view, the build up now, like let's chase those champions and let's build some more special cards around it. So as far as the last card is concerned, Holly Holm filled in last minute. I know there were, you wanted to get Kennedy Blades on there. I know there was potentially, I think Willie revealed there's some kind of compliance issue with that at one point, but sticking with Holly Holm here, I found this fascinating because I know you guys are going the UFC route, but obviously with the Hulk Hogan influence, people were like, oh, maybe there's going to be some kind of WWE influence, but she filled in last minute. First of all, had this come about? And second of all, does that give you guys ideas moving forward of like, maybe we'll hold off a match and we'll announce it as like a surprise, like right as the card starts, and maybe do something like that?
I mean, I can't even script this thing. It was wild because we dealt with some real struggles prior to this of like different compliance issues. Izzy really had the idea. Izzy's been Holly's coach for quite some time. We were trying to figure out how we're going to replace Kennedy. And then it was a surprise, right? At 1 a.m, Izzy was talking to Holly, and I came down, but it really was, she agreed, which was crazy, right? It was 1 a.m. the night before. And I'd say Holly's such an unbelievable athlete. So I can't even say we had some luck because she's such a good athlete.
Right.
She almost pinned her. It was like, you couldn't have scripted a better opportunity. It was like, it ended up being good, but it was a risk for Holly, it was a risk for us. But it was really Izzy's idea, and Holly and his relationship that allowed her to trust him to do it. But I think she's going to wrestle again. She had a blast. I think wrestling's the best sport there is. And if you had asked me what I want to watch on a Friday night, it's Big Ten or another, or Big Ten Network or another sport. Choose that. So I think when you get into that vibe and you felt the arena, Holly's like, I love this. Imagine if Holly trained for another 3 months, what she's gonna do? It's gonna be she's gonna be dangerous.
Yeah, if you're teasing right now that she might wrestle again, if she just goes full-fledged wrestling mode after being a boxer and a UFC champion in the past, I can't imagine what she's going to do on the mat. So that would certainly be something to watch. I wanted to circle back to the origins of this league and just building this thing up. And I know you already alluded to that you and Izzy had a lot of conversations, just bouncing off ideas. But then you finally came onto this one, and you mentioned how you guys got Ben Askren involved initially, especially when he was originally supposed to wrestle. When you look at, I guess, either the pro leagues that are out there now and even the ones that have tried in the past, did you feel like an individual model / UFC model was the best way to build this thing, to brand these athletes, especially if you were able to nail down some of the top guys that were, top men and women that were wrestling either at the collegiate level or on the world level just recently? Did you feel like the UFC model and the individual model, sticking with the freestyle, because obviously it's known internationally, that was the best method for you guys to attack?
Yeah. So Izzy, myself, Eric Bischoff, who I met through Hulk. So Hulk was my business partner with Real American Beer, and we were doing these tours, right, constantly in I like to call them heavy wrestling markets. Like we were in Oklahoma for a beer tour, and the Rollers came to see Hulk, right? We were in all these different areas. When we were in Illinois, I saw in your original opening statements, like you interviewed Lucas Bird. Yeah. We took Hulk, me, Mikey Poeta, Lucas Bird, Ed, all of them went with Izzy out, and they got to know their personalities. We just felt that, and Eric felt this too, but in order to tell the good story, right? I think the one thing wrestling was missing, which I thought we did a good job is showing the character traits of and telling that story that you saw on our live stream, is really going and spending the time with the wrestler and creating those packages so that people could connect with the athlete. So the one-on-one is I'm not saying eventually you don't do some sort of team. Let's just say we did something different. They're always going to be, and maybe we go and launch folk style, Greco, whatever it may be. But for this one, we thought it was the best way to create excitement. And I think it worked out.
Yeah, certainly did, especially for the first event, and looking forward to seeing what comes next month. And we'll dive into that in just a sec. Wanted to spend a little time on Hulk Hogan. Obviously, he didn't get to, really see this fully fleshed out. Unfortunately, he did pass away. But what was his impact on you, and I guess this league in as a whole? Because everyone who knows of Hulk Hogan, at the very minimum, knows he's a legend, wrestling legend, WWE legend. He's an American icon. And I feel like this was his latest venture where he wanted to make something absolutely huge and make his mark on something. What was his impact on you? And obviously, you mentioned you already partnered with him with Real American Beer, and now for him to try to get this league off the ground, what was his influence like on RAF?
I mean, he obviously is an unbelievable brand guy, built Hulkamania. He doesn't jump in anything unless he understands it, right? So he spent the time with me and Izzy and other wrestlers, right, really understanding the community of wrestling. And once he felt the energy, he'd be like, brother, these guys got that McGregor swagger, right? And so he had to see that the personalities were, that there was personality in the sport, because wrestling, right? You cover it for a long time. It's like very serious, right? In order for this to be successful, it wasn't that you needed to be gimmicky, but you have to show that you can perform. People want to see big moves, excitement, personality, right? So he saw that was possible, and he loved it. Like he dove right in. Like, when we shot the NWO video, like with Eric Bischoff and Izzy, like this was like pre him getting, starting to have surgeries and all the, what happened, but he was loving it. He was super excited. And when he was in the hospital, he's coming out, he's like, brother, I'll drive if I have to. So he would have been very proud. I think the production quality was great. Like he would have seen what we saw in the walkouts. And again, how I think Hulk wasn't about the money. It was about, if you were part of his team, he grinded the same way anyone else would grind, even sometimes harder, so he would have been just excited to see how the response of the fans and also how the athletes felt.
Yeah. I know he was quoted back right after the NCAA championships. I think right around the time of more announcements for the league that were coming out. Maybe it impacted a lot more people, even the casual wrestling fan or even the non-wrestling fans, was when Wyatt Hendrickson knocked off Gable Steveson for the national title at heavyweight. Of course, everyone knows Gable's was coming back to college wrestling, two-time champ, virtually unbeatable, Olympic gold medalist, and now he's making his as we're recording this, he's making his MMA debut tonight, right? So when you look at that type of upset and what I guess the trajectory of what Wyatt Hendrickson has done, being like the new Captain America, being in the Air Force right now, wins a title. Now he's on the world team. He's part of RAF. He's your champ right now at heavyweight. When Hulk saw that, he was like, yeah, like this is what it's all about. Was that like obviously not in a negative connotation, but was that the straw that broke the camel's back? It's like, yeah, like we can have this like absolutely explode.
So I was at NCAs with Izzy and our venture firm that backed us. We were already moving. So that he was excited. That was just like, brother, you couldn't pick the better timing, right? Yeah. It wasn't about like, now let's move. We already moved. Yeah. Once Hulk didn't need, he wasn't a bandwagon person. If he fell into the sport, and he knew that there's potential, he already saw it. So the Wyatt thing was just like, he literally called me up. He's like, because I was there. He's like, brother, unbelievable timing. He's a star, right? So it was like, he was excited about Wyatt. And Wyatt's honestly incredible to work with. Like I got to spend a lot of time with Wyatt. He's just a great human being, but he was really excited about Wyatt and what the potential was there. Yeah. And obviously, Wyatt's unbelievable. So
yeah, I like hearing that. So RAF 2 is coming. Date change, as you mentioned before we got on the air, but it's been announced already, October 25th at Penn State. Just what do you have building right now for RAF 2? I know Kyle Snyder and Mason Paris was just announced as well. Of course, Snyder, Olympic gold medalist, been on the world team for, I think since I was in college, pretty much. And that's when he won his Olympic gold medal as well. Of course, three-time champ over Ohio State, and everyone knows Mason Paris, his success on the world level, and of course being a national champ for Michigan. So you have that old school Ohio State-Michigan rivalry there as well. Just one, RAF2, how's it coming along as we're about a month and a half out? And then 2, with Kyle Slenner, Mason Paris. I got to imagine that was a match that you guys really wanted to try to put together.
Yeah. So, Izzy's been working on that card for a while, and he, on that specific match. And I think it's a great match. Like Mason, I think it's going to be I think everyone wants to see that match, so we're excited about it. I think the card in general from top to bottom is going to be pretty, just like the Cleveland one. It's going to be, it's great. Like that's the key is like people, you have to put matches together too, that they're not just going to expect to see an NCAA, right? You have to put matches that are going to, like, even putting Darian Caldwell against Real Woods on the first card and Lance against Gomez, whatever the outcome was, people were still curious because you put what could happen on those. So I think that you'll see a card that's thought out, that's exciting, and we're going to go right into November. And we're shooting for a November 29th date for RAF 03, and then we're going to have another announcement for another big college December 19th. And we're going to go I think the key for us is to be successful is that we have to keep putting events. We have to keep creating the content, giving wrestlers opportunities. We're going to do a weekly show where we're going to have in the new year, we're going to go 3 shows pre to the big main event. So like kind of like a show where, it's at a casino or somewhere else where wrestlers are trying to make it into the main card.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, I like it. So as far as some of the other matches, obviously this hasn't been announced, but I think maybe the old school fan wants it. Chael Sonnen obviously will do pretty much anything under the sun as long as he's competing. Are we going to get Chael Sonnen and Tito Ortiz at this point?
It's not off the table. It's not off the table. I think there's definitely a possibility that could happen in the new year.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was gonna say for those who didn't see it, they obviously clashed over the mics when it came to RAF 01 during that inaugural event, typical Chael, typical Tito. So I think it's definitely entertaining to say the least.
That was not planned either at all. Just so we're clear, it's like all the stuff people maybe thought was planned. That happened at the nth hour because Tito wanted to call him out, and then we didn't know. It was just like a surprise kind of thing, but that was all not planned.
Boy, I love seeing that. I mean, Chael just competed at CJI2 in a grappling match against Craig Jones, so it's like maybe he will get his best 3 out of 5 at some point.
And Chael's so good on, like, he loves wrestling.
Yeah,
getting him to be a part of it, it's like he just killed it on the commentary. He was so good.
Yeah, the fact that he has that UFC branding and the fact that, some people forget that he wrestled at Oregon, which unfortunately doesn't have a program these days, but he was a big-time college wrestler, was an All-American, so makes sense to me. So you already alluded to some of the other locations. I would imagine right now nothing's been officially announced, but with the way it is, the way it's structured right now, you're already at Cleveland. You're going to Penn State next month. Do you guys plan on keeping it pretty much, East Coast based right now before going west, or is pretty much anything on the table right here?
I think that we're gonna go Midwest, which are East Coast, right, and then work our way to. We'll have to go to the West Coast eventually.
Yeah,
the plan, because the West Coast wrestling's huge in California, but I'm from the Midwest. It's obviously I'm from Cleveland, so it's easy. The key is like what we chose for Cleveland or Penn State is where you're from, right? You wrestle. Where is there heavily populated areas that we know we're going to get the wrestling fans, and then the key is how do we drive mainstream audiences?
Yeah,
I watched our event. I think the purist was like, what is this going to be, right? But you have to have like one of the big moments is that I thought was like even Dake, the way Dake performed and did the double kind of like threw once, then threw a second time. Like those are moments that create like the super excitement. When Null slammed Wick on the side and then Wick came back and won that, and then he did a backflip at the end. Like these are the things that show the level of excitement. And I was in the arena front row and I was hearing the response. And I think the success for us, and you probably would agree with this, is like the non-wrestling fans, like what's the point system there? And we have to do a better, like why do they get 4 points there? So people are asking those questions. That means they were engaged. So we have to continue to do a good job of educating. But I think the key to the success is picking markets where we know we're going to have immediate success, and then gaining momentum, and then going to markets where wrestling needs a little support and love. And we'll pick those markets once we continue to build our fan base.
The partnership you guys have with Fox just made sense from a production standpoint. With Hulk's brand and your brand of Real American Beer, of course, just calling it Real American Freestyle. Of course, I think that made sense from a production standpoint. What's that relationship like as far as streaming for the next event, future events? Was it a one-off deal, or is it kind of just like, all right, they're going to have multiple events and then maybe we open it up, or are they just they're here along for the ride until
we killed it on Fox? I can't say exact stats, but like it all comes down to how many subscriptions or downloads you got on the Fox Nation app. I'd say we absolutely murdered it. Fox has been a great partner to us. Like it's not just about the subscription; it's about how leaned in they were. You saw outside of what we did marketing wise, you saw all the stuff they were doing. You were plastered on Ohio State, Texas. You're watching it and you're going to walk in, boom, you see RAF. The key was we focused hard on marketing this. Like that's why we were successful. If we just came into this not marketing the brand, it wouldn't have had the same outcome. So Fox was a phenomenal partner to us because they all, not just on what we did on the streaming side, it's what they did leading up to that. You put like Bo on the platform on Fox and Friends. You put Real Woods and Lance on there. You put Wide on there. We put multiple people on interviews. Local outlets. We treated that was what professional sports are supposed to be. If you're in the UFC, you're doing multiple interviews leading to your match. We got so many interviews for these both men and women, and I think that was our success. And we wouldn't have been able to do that without Fox.
Yeah, looks like a good partnership from back from the first event, and obviously moving forward. So this is my take on this as far as wrestling. Post-collegiate, what these guys are going to do, professionally, if they're not going to make a world and Olympic team. In a perfect world, I could see multiple leagues out there, your league, CWA, whatever Claw's doing as well. I know they're all unique in their own way. You guys have a UFC model. CWA is more of that team model, going the folk style route. Claw, very unique, different different rules. I'm not going to call them gimmicks, but it's something that's very different, maybe engages the audience a little bit. What do you see as far as how these pro leagues will evolve? Do you see room for 2 or 3, maybe even more? Or is it like, all right, maybe only one is going to come out of this, maybe 3-4 years from now?
I don't want to comment on other people's. Listen, I want everyone to be successful. Like, hope they are successful. I literally have been tunnel vision into what we're doing. And so we've had some people, out there kind of doing their thing. But we've been tunnel vision. So we're just focused on the evolution of what we're building. And I think for us is like, we know that we need to have a weekly show, which is like, we have so much demand from international wrestlers to the US, to all the US wrestlers, but we want to be able to give a footprint and a platform where we can continue to put matches together and continue to produce content. And then our goal will be kind of like how the UFC and PFL have their international model is you can see possibly a real Japan league that we create, or a real whatever the country is. We have a lot of inbounds for people to wrestle. So I think the production speaks for itself, and if we keep that going, then the sky's the limit. But there's always room for other people. Like I think that we were the ones that built it on a very big stage. But there's always going to be room for other people.
Yeah, I respect that answer a lot. So as far as I wanted to go back to the college athletes you signed initially, like a Kennedy Blades. When you look at athletes like her and others that maybe are still in college at this point, I guess and you could say as much or little about this as you want. I guess because of those compliance issues where she couldn't be on that first card. Is that where you kind of now steer away from the college athlete and wait until they're fully out of college, or do you still try to maybe find ways to get college stars involved in something like this?
Yeah, Kennedy just couldn't be on that card, but she'll be on a card here in the next 2 cards. But I think you'll see a mixture of college athletes sprinkled in on each card for sure. And you'll see some even like retired athletes that are still badass and can still win at the most premier level. So, and you'll also see some fun, like you said, we're going to create some really exciting matches that you'll see that could be a Holly again or someone else that voice. So it's like, it's just being creative and not following following what everyone thinks you should do. And kind of, we did what we thought we wanted to do.
Makes sense. So as far as along the college lines, have you had conversations with college coaches on how to maybe not necessarily how to market, but maybe additional marketing ideas or relationships with certain school, big wrestling schools that maybe we can host an event. You have a duel on Friday, we host an RA event on Saturday, something like that. Have you had those conversations with some of the bigger colleges and the Division I schools as far as having a relationship as far as events are concerned, or just getting these coaches and getting to know the athletes a little bit more? Maybe they'll be a part of RAF in the future.
Yeah, Izzy obviously leading the charge. I've been working with him, but yeah, we've had multiple conversations. You'll see. Again, before we came in here with any sort of like, hey, we're going to do this, we wanted to make sure we had a buy-in from a lot of the coaches, right? So I think we proved to the coaches that we're not, we're a real thing. And like I said, one of the, we've talked to a lot of different college coaches, even in Cleveland. Like, it doesn't have to be like it's not always Ohio State. We're talking, but also Kent State. Josh Moore just took a coaching job there, and Josh helped us out a lot in Cleveland. We worked with him. We wanted to make sure we gave Kent State some love, and then he also was out in the local camps and stuff talking about RAF. And, so we're working with, I think the key for us is if we're going to build this, is try to give everybody the opportunity to make wrestling. I like to say is like, we want to make wrestling cool for like me. You're an enthusiast, I'm an enthusiast, but the non-enthusiasts, we have to show it why it's a cool sport. And that gives the ability of, other colleges to promote the same way and drive their own fan base. Because some don't have the same fan base as a Penn State or Ohio State or the other groups. So it's just helping to drive consumers into everybody.
Yeah, makes sense. So as far as, sticking with the UFC model type of stuff, I wanted to specifically ask about Bo Nickel, because obviously he does fight in the UFC. Holly Holm was in the UFC. What do you guys have a pretty good relationship with that organization as far as, I don't want to say, sharing might be a lackadaisical term, but sharing the athletes. I know sometimes when you're with a certain organization, there's exclusive contracts, but again, it's MMA and wrestling. What does your guys' relationship look like with the UFC as far as, guys like Bo Nickel being able to compete in both organizations, and maybe some other UFC fighters who wrestled in college or had great wrestling accolades could come on to this league as well? What's that relationship like?
We always look at it like we're an additive approach, right? Bo won his match. The next, I'm not saying it's because of this, but the next, then a couple of days later, Bo's at Madison Square Garden fighting November 15th.
Right.
So I think that Bo is been a good advisor to us, unbelievable person. And he's a good example of like, he could go on that November 15th card and all things considered comes out good. He can go wrestle 3 weeks later, right? Because wrestling's different on your body. You only get, Bo said it on his Ariel Wani interview, but you only get 2 fights a year, right? So this continues, if anything, it continues to build the brand. So it's not competitive. If you're in the WWE and you're in the UFC, it's like, boom, someone gets a good match against a big wrestling star. It only pops that person's brand, and it continues to, build that brand equity. Holly, good example, like Holly's going to box. She's done UFC, but she's part of MVP, right? Mm-hmm. And like, who wouldn't want it? She's a triple, call it, the conversation about how great of a combat sport she is. Yeah. So I think that, we're not competitive and we haven't had any problems right now. And I don't, we've been respectful to everybody. And I think if you look at it from that approach, it's that's how Bo would look at it per se.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to ask about Ben Askren before I almost glossed over that, because he was originally supposed to wrestle. Obviously had the health issues, had to have a double lung transplant, but it seems like he is, we all know how Ben Askren is, already kind of back into action. I saw a video the other day. He's already back in his AWA Academy coaching. He's sitting in a chair, but he is coaching. So he's getting back to the typical Ben Askren. So, not going to speculate whether or not, wrestling is actually in his future, even well down the line. But as far as his involvement with RAF moving forward, what does that look like between you two guys?
Yeah, so Izzy and Ben were good friends. They partnered on the P&L together and done a lot of stuff. Like Ben was with us going at it real hard in the beginning, not just as a wrestler, as a advisor and partner. And then after this all happened and he got back, we put Ben full time with us. He obviously does his thing. Yep. Ben's sitting in the room with Izzy and Willie and Lance, and they're putting together these cards. And I would say this, like right when Ben was, went back in the hospital, he was in a hospital bed, still joining our calls. He's a different kind of person. He's incredible to our company. Been a part of it since day one, and he's very active. So he's part of the team. So I can't speak on behalf of his competition, but he's very valuable to us in the day-to-day operation of what we're doing here. And he's always giving us his called, as you know, Ben, candid feedback.
Yeah. Yeah, he's certainly a valuable asset, whether he's actually on the mat, even well past his prime career as a wrestler, but obviously, with the way he is as a coach and an advisor for the sport, or advocate for the sport, I should say, it's certainly great to see. So, Chad, I appreciate your time today. I'll leave you here with this one because, with RAF 02 coming up on October 25th, I know your tunnel vision, and you guys are like, all right, one event at a time, but we have to, meticulously do this, October, November, December, so on and so forth. We want to build this thing so it's gigantic. The biggest thing in pro wrestling. What do you envision, you and the rest of the RAF team, but then in the higher ups? What do you guys envision over the next, let's just say, the long term vision, the 5-10 year plan here for RAF?
I think it becomes its own version. We like to say it's family friendly combat, right? Because if you looked at our audience, it was like you got that same kind of fun environment for the adults, but then you had a huge youth community there, both men and women, right? Girls and boys, right? So I feel like I believe this could be a huge platform at the same levels of some other platforms. And our goal is to build it with the team we've built it. It's a lot. It's like you got some full on wrestling enthusiasts, been in the sport forever. And then other people, I think it brings it a really good, middle ground. But I think that, our goal is to build this thing to be huge for the wrestling community. Ideally bring in very large brands so that athlete, the more we can build this, the more an athlete can come out and actually make it a full-time career. Right. And I think we've already gotten there with certain things, but as we grow this, then you're going to see people full-time joining RAF, just like you do, training all year round for the UFC. Right. I think that's the end goal is people are making their salaries and or their lives off of the sport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now look, that sounds pretty good to me, especially whether that happens very soon or 5-10 years down the line. I think that would be the dream scenario for the sport of wrestling, that you can pursue this post college and you don't have to be on the Olympic or world team title. Those are still great goals to have, probably the biggest goals to have in wrestling, but the fact that this could be a full-time professional option looks really great. Chad Bronstein with me, CEO and co-founder of Real American Freestyle. Follow them on social media platforms at RAF Wrestling USA. Of course, Fox Nation, the host of the production and the streaming. October 25th for the RAF 02, Mason Paris, Kyle Snyder. Already a big announcement. Looking forward to that one. Chad, really appreciate your time, my man.
Are you coming to the event?
I'm gonna have to see if my schedule can manage. I didn't even see it. Over here at On3. Actually no. This is a Thursday. So is it a Thursday?
No, it's Saturday, October 25th.
Of course, we're at On3. We're busy with college football, but I would say there's definitely a good chance that RAF could definitely be in my near future. I gotta check it out at the minimum for sure.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick.
Absolutely. Chad Bronstein once again with me right here on On3 Sports.